We all have dreams and goals and things we know that God has promised us. We start off excited. We're sailing along fine, making progress. Then a storm arises, an unexpected challenge, a sickness, a breakup. We lose a loved one. A contract we were counting on doesn't go through. It's easy to get discouraged and think it's never going to happen. But God doesn't promise something and then change His mind. He doesn't put a dream in your heart and then take it back. What He starts, He finishes. You may not see a way, but God hasn't run out of options. We think natural, but God is supernatural. He has ways we've never thought of. And God wouldn't have allowed that storm if it was going to keep you from your destiny. If that bad break, that loss, that person that walked away, if that was going to stop your purpose, God would have kept it from happening. And we may not like it, but it's a part of the process. Storms come to us all. The good news is God is in control of the winds. He's in control of what's trying to stop you. And all He has to do is shift the winds, and instead of holding you back, they will propel you forward. They were meant for your harm, but He knows how to turn them around and use them to your advantage. You may be facing a situation where you don't see how it could work out. In your health, your finances, a relationship, every voice says, there's no way. It's too late. The obstacles are too big. God is saying, you're still going to get there. I'm still on the throne. I'm working behind the scenes. I'm fighting your battles. I'm arranging the breaks you need. I'm lining up the right people. When it's all said and done, what God promised will come to pass. You're still going to get well. You're still going to meet the right person. You're still going to break that addiction. You're still going to accomplish your dreams. Where you are is not an accident. God may not have sent the storm, but He is in control of the storm. Here's the test. Will you trust Him when you don't see any sign of things improving? Will you stay in faith when every thought tells you it's never going to work out? This is what the Apostle Paul did. He was a prisoner on a boat headed to Rome. He'd been arrested in Jerusalem for causing a disturbance. Even though he was found not guilty, he had appealed to Caesar. And while they were sailing on this several-month journey, 276 people on board, they encountered a huge storm with hurricane-force winds. The waves were so big, they were battering the boat back and forth. For 14 days, they didn't see the sun nor the stars. The boat was so beat up, it was taking on water. The crew started throwing cargo and supplies overboard. They were despondent. They had quit eating. The scripture says all hope of them being saved was gone. But in the middle of the storm, an angel appeared to Paul. He said in Acts 27, "Don't be afraid, Paul, for you will surely stand before Caesar. God in His goodness has granted safety to everyone sailing with you." Paul had this promise that he would make it to Rome, but all the circumstances said he would never get there. Everywhere he looked, the winds, the waves, the crew said he wasn't going to make it. He could have thought, God, I must have heard you wrong. You said I would stand before Caesar, but I'm in a sinking boat in the middle of the ocean, stuck in a hurricane. Sometimes what God promises looks just the opposite of what we see. God, you said I was going to get well. All I see is sickness. You said I would lend and not borrow, but I see debt, lack, struggle. You said my children would be mighty in the land, but I see addictions, compromise. Here's the key. You can't be moved by what you see. You have to be moved by what you know. Don't let that storm talk you out of what God promised. In the middle of the storm, when it looked impossible, no sign of things improving, Paul went up to the crew and said, it's going to be all right. Get something to eat. God promised that I would not only stand before Caesar, but that all of your lives would be spared. The next verse is the key. He said, and I believe it will be just as God said. See, God can make all these promises, but if we don't take the next step and say like Paul, God, I believe what you promised me will come to pass, then the promises won't do any good. We have to mix faith with them. When Paul told the crew that their lives were going to be spared, no doubt waves were splashing him in the face. Wind so strong, almost knocking him down, had to hold on to the boat. It had been this way for 2 weeks. He could have been depressed like the rest of them, complaining. Instead, he was talking about what God promised. He was speaking life in the face of death. He was talking victory in the middle of defeat. What you're saying in the storm will have a great impact on whether you stay there or whether you come out. If you're saying, I'll never get well, I can't break this addiction, I've had it since high school. Joel, these people that did me wrong, this injustice, it ruined my life. If you talk defeat, you're going to have defeat. If you think I'll never get out of this trouble, then you never will. In the middle of the storm, you need to declare what God promised you. I am coming out. This too shall pass. I am not moved by the waves, the winds, the opposition. I know God being for me is more than the world being against me. I will get well. I will prosper and succeed. My children will serve the Lord. Get in agreement with God. The angel said, Paul, everyone sailing with you will be saved. Here Paul was a prisoner on the boat. He didn't have any influence there. The crew saw him as secondary, just another inmate we have to transport. They thought Paul was sailing with them. But notice how God sees you. He said, Paul, everyone sailing with you will be saved. You may have some enemies, people that look down on you. They think they have the upper hand. Don't worry, you're not sailing with them. They're sailing with you. Nothing can snatch you out of God's hands. You may feel like you're on the boat of the opposition, like you're at a disadvantage at work, at school, but people don't determine your destiny. They cannot stop God's plan for your life. You may be on their boat, but remember, they're sailing with you. God is going to get you to where you're supposed to be. Without Paul on the boat, all the people would have perished. The hurricane would have caused it to sink. There was no chance in the natural. All the circumstances said it was doomed, just a bad break. But there was a man on that boat with a calling on his life, a man with a purpose, with a destiny. This is showing us a storm cannot stop what God has purposed. You may